Joining us live now from Bristol is Tony Gosling, who is an investigative journalist. Tony, thanks for joining us. What do you make of the U.S. role in the region, vis-a-vis, of course, specifically providing arms and political cover to many countries that are even engaged in war?
Well, there's a military discipline which is not made public. Very occasionally it leaks out. It's billions of dollars, billions of pounds are spent on it. It's called conflict initiation, and largely it's been privatized. Also, the naval leaders in Iran today are quite right to talk about chaos, because the dark forces which are coming together at the moment from the West, I mean, we're really talking about the Anglo-Zionist empire, NATO and Israel that is, have a motto. It's ordo ab chaos, which is Latin, and that means order from chaos. So they have to create the chaos, and then they attempt to bring order from it at some point in the future. The only trouble is, of course, in places like Libya, that's been a total disaster. There's still total chaos there right now. And that means that organised crime groups like the mafia, who actually the people at the top in the West are far more close to than people would realise, they are benefiting from this. What we've seen in Iraq, for example, was a chaos for a few years, and now order is starting to come out of it. And that's exactly what they want, because they can make a lot of money out of the rebuilding of a country that they've destroyed in the past.
But I imagine, Tony, that all of this endangers Western countries' own citizens, because we've already seen blowback, haven't we, from their policies vis-a-vis supporting groups that many would call terror groups.
Because, governments are threatening their own people's lives, I think. And one of the reasons that I mean, there are four main forces involved, I think, in civic society and in the military to do with this. One is the control of foreign policy through private interests. I mean, effectively, all these things have now been ceded into private hands, you know, private control of these things. Foreign policy is decided by groups like Chatham House and the Council on Foreign Relations in the United States, which are private organisations. They're not actually, and nobody in there is democratically elected to what they do. Then we're talking about the media too, which is also, I mean, the BBC, for example, has been effectively infiltrated by, we've just heard literally in the last day, that there's been, the secret services have been completely controlling the employment of journalists, depending on what their political views are. So somebody like me, with generally left-wing views, well, I lost my job at the BBC in 1993. So that's also very powerful. So the mostly private media, the BBC is the only state-controlled media, and the armed forces and finance. So all those forces of darkness, I'm afraid, are. I mean, what we're doing, we're at a point now where the media particularly is being used to bamboozle domestic populations in the West. We're not so much talking about the rest of the world, which has its own media, but the coverage of world events, the coverage of domestic terrorism is very much controlled by the media over here. So there's a lot of discussion about the Duma attack, so-called chemical weapons attack in other parts of the world. That has been very, very limited in Britain, for example, because what we've seen is attacks on independent journalists like Vanessa Beeley, for example, who've been actually trying to do an honest job in reporting that. So the media has been key to this. But look, we're staring World War III in the face now. A potential scenario which we need to warn against is Israel versus Iran and other Arab countries, and with the UK and the United States coming in on Israel's side against Russia. And that sort of conflict will almost certainly pull in China, after a while on Russia's side. So this could turn into a very, very major international conflict. Right. And I hope that the armed forces gathering in Tehran are well aware of that and preparing for it.
All right, Tony, we'll leave there at that. But of course, as always, we appreciate your insight.